And coming out of the fog, Mr. Benny Mathers.
Right? Yeah, if I could just be like, if I had some visual concept here coming around on the screen, I'd be like, where are you, everybody? What's going on?
Hello,
All right.
hello,
It is a little
hello.
foggy out there, but be careful out there, drivers, Give yourself
Yeah,
distance between the other vehicles in front of you. I always say that.
yeah. I think that's great advice.
Mhm.
I I watched too many of those movies where, I don't know, the Vikings or somebody's on the boat and they're like, what's going to
Hey,
happen?
my beard's
Right?
coming in quite nicely. I think we might have some Halloween ideas starting to form here. I'm liking it.
He-
Get like the
I
the horns and like.
Yeah, the horns and the whole bit,
All
right?
right. I won't
It
be
was like,
storming any capital though. I'll tell you that. I won't do that.
oh, no, no,
No,
no,
no.
none of that,
That
none
was a
of that.
terrible joke.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Oh, no, 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 that's okay. You can bring
You're
that
gonna see me
in.
doing that though. I'll go to the Capitol to
I
say hi.
Yeah, yeah, we'll talk about that.
Okay,
Yes,
right,
for
sounds
sure.
good. Sounds like a plan.
Sounds like a plan. Yeah, for sure the weather has changed. It's changed. You can
Yeah,
feel it.
you can feel it
Yeah,
in there. Fall is definitely right around the corner. Of course, on Sunday is spring forward, fall back. So right, daylight savings, I believe.
that's right.
Okay.
Let's see, what is it? No,
Wait, let
it's
me double
fall
check.
back. Yeah, spring. Is it this
No,
Sunday?
no, no. Is
No,
that
no.
really what it's? I gotta check it now.
I do too. I was like, is that this Sunday? It could be. We'll find out in just a moment, make sure everybody knows. But,
That's terrible. I don't know that.
well, we do know that autumn, fall begins on Sunday, like the autumn equinox is here, which I can't even believe I'm saying because we just had the summer solstice, didn't
November
we?
3rd.
Okay,
I
so we
was
still have
way
a little
off.
wait. Okay,
Way
all
off.
right. Okay. But you were going in the right direction
Yes.
because you were talking about fall.
Yes,
Yeah.
correct. And that begins on Sunday. All right. Got that one covered.
Yeah.
Phew. All right.
Yeah.
That was
So
off the desk.
you're good to go.
All
It's
right.
just that fog. We're just a little foggy. And
Okay.
yeah. Yeah. Thinking about Vikings. God knows what else we're thinking about. Anyway,
You might be. I'm not. I'll let you have that one, though.
I have a client who has discovered she's part Viking, and I
Really?
think she's going to embrace it. I want her to embrace it.
That's
So,
awesome.
yeah, it is. I think it's really cool. So,
Someday maybe I'll figure out my heritage or my roots because I'm adopted, so I'm not really sure, but maybe I'm a Viking too.
oh, you could be.
Hmm.
Yeah, you could be. Yeah, I haven't done one of those ancestral tests, but other people have done, and they have a lot of fun with it. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
I did too as well. The boys and their mom and I, we've all done it. And it has to be compiled from others around as well, not just
Is
for
that
you.
right?
Well, because she only knows her lineage from her side of the family. I have really nothing other than just the boys, because they're part of my kin. So that way, if you're going the other direction, I don't know.
Yeah. So now I'm all interested. Like one day I'll just interview you, Benny.
Oh
Just interview
boy.
you, find out everything about
Sure.
you. Yeah,
All
yeah.
right.
I
Okay.
like this
All
idea,
right.
because you're a wondrous and a miraculous person and intuitive.
That
You're
was a
very
good
good.
play on
Yeah.
words. Well
Yeah.
done for today's show.
Thank
I
you.
see what you did
Thank you.
there.
All right.
All
Well,
right.
let's jump in. Let's jump in.
All
I
right.
am Loretta Brown. Yeah. I'm the owner of Reiki Oasis located right here in the greater Seattle for almost 30 years. And you can find out more about me at ReikiOasis.com. Schedule anything at schedule.ReikiOasis.com. And I do have my Temple of the Divine Feminine class this coming Saturday, the day after tomorrow. And we will be celebrating the autumn equinox, as well as just doing some really fun, lovely things. And what powerful astrology we have. I'm going to go through it briefly, and then I need to bring my guest on because you're going to love this show. So, yes, we had a full moon in Pisces lunar eclipse, and I got to tell you, I'm still feeling it. It's kind of a big one. This is our last lunar eclipse of the year, but our first eclipse for the September October season. The sister eclipse for this one is October 2nd. So this is lunar. October 2nd will be a solar eclipse. And that's actually going to end up a 18-month period of time where we've been having eclipses on this Aries axis, right? So this one, though, this Pisces lunar eclipse brings an ending to these chapters of these eclipses we've been having that have really been hammering on you Aries people. And it gives us a taste of what's going to be coming in 2025 with the Virgo Pisces eclipses. The full moon in Pisces also forms a rare kite configuration with the moon conjunct Neptune in dreamy Pisces, lighting up our intuition and connections to higher consciousness. So messages might be coming through. Maybe it's time to get back into that meditative practice if you've let it go, right? The sun in grounded Virgo reminds us to bring these spiritual insights down to earth. Uranus in Taurus and Pluto in Capricorn are adding their supportive energy, encouraging radical shifts and deep transformation. This eclipse is all about divine timing. If you've been pushing really hard to make something happen and it's just not going that way, trust that the universe is really just trying to redirect you, and look for signs, synchronicities, and little nudges that maybe you need to go this way, or maybe you need to go that way, or maybe you don't need to push quite so hard because you're not in charge of the timing of things all the time. So unlike South Node eclipses, which are about letting go, this is a North Node eclipse, which means new energy is flowing in, bringing opportunities that could shift your life in very unexpected ways. And also, this is Pisces energy. It's emotional for all my sensitive people out there. If you need to cry, I really encourage you, just do it. Sometimes we need to open up to our emotions. We try to stuff them all down in there. And what's it? I think it's the name of a book, Feelings Buried Alive Never Die, something like that. We're probably going to talk more about that with my guest. Anyway, Thursday, which is today, September 19, Sun trines Uranus. The Sun in Virgo trines Uranus in Taurus, bringing positive information our way. And excuse me, this can also help us to make changes in our life with ease. So it's a good day to take steps into a new direction. Friday, tomorrow, we got a couple of things. We got Venus quincunx Uranus, which is putting a little bit of a cautionary tone on relationships. Now is not the time to be shoving through or forcing a solution, or even to take major actions, because that Uranus, and it's also, we also have the sun opposite Neptune tomorrow, right? And this can create kind of confusion or maybe an illusion, and sometimes even a deception is clouding the facts. So just take it a little bit easy, right? Especially when we're looking at the news or information coming in. There could be misinformation coming in personally or globally. So just take a breath, right? Saturday, lots of stuff. Sun opposite Neptune is bringing a close to something that might have been causing you a little difficulty this month. Saturday, Mercury squares Jupiter. Finances need some attention. And I have a lot of people, they ask me about finances all the time. And I'm going to tell you that one of the very best things we could ever do on planet Earth is develop our own intuitive abilities, our sensitivities, our direct connection to a higher consciousness, because we actually carry, in my opinion, the truth within us somewhere. You just have to find it. And then, of course, Sunday, Sun in Libra, and the equinox, a very big day. Welcome to Libra season. Some of you can already feel it. It's going to help balance this out. And also the autumn equinox, where we experience equal hours of night and day. It's a time of harvesting what we have sown. With that equal day and night, you can think of the Libra scales and just stop. I'm like, just stop a moment. Take a big deep breath. Say, how am I doing? You are reaping what you've sown. So did you apply your energy in a good direction? Like, like how are you doing? And remember that you can always redirect if you don't like what's going on. On Sunday, also, the Sun trines Pluto plus the Venus square Pluto. This unique combination stirs up this sort of, like I said, remember, we're in a day of balance that day. And so the question becomes, do you need to put your foot down, or do you need to step back a little bit? Are you too aggressive? Are you too passive? What's going on? Let's try to bring it all together. So, on that sort of interesting energy, which sounds a little bit unstable, we are seeking that balance. And I know that we're all seekers of knowledge, or you wouldn't be on my show. And so I'm going to bring my wonderful guest on today, Joseph Selbie. And Joseph Selbie is the author of the paradigm changing book, The Physics of Miraculous Healing, Enable Unlimited Self Healing. Joseph is known for creating bridges of understanding between the modern evidence-based discoveries of science and the timeless experience-based discoveries of the mystics. He's also the author of The Physics of God, a unification of science and religion, break through the limits of the brain, neuroscientific support for spiritual evidence, and the Yugas, a fractal look at India's tradition of cyclical history. Joseph is a dedicated Kriya Yoga meditator for over 50 years. He has taught yoga, meditation, and universal experiential spirituality throughout the US and Europe. In 1975, Joseph became a member of Ananda, a spiritual movement inspired by the teachings of Paramahansa Yogananda, author of Autobiography of a Yoga. And he's been on many, many shows. He's all over the place. And now he is here on the original Loretta Brown Show. Welcome to the show, Joseph.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I had you on a while back with the wonderful Dr. Amit Goswami. And I love all of this conversation. I think it's very, very important. I want to kind of just start with this question because I really, like I said, I'm very interested in this subject. But you have done, you're a dedicated Kriya Yoga meditator for, goodness, how long is that? Is that like 50 years?
50 years.
Wow. So how does that connect, how does that change your perspective of life, or does it? Like, who were you before and who are you now, right?
It'd be easier perhaps to say what hasn't changed
Okay.
because everything else has.
Oh,
It's,
yeah.
it's not so much outer change. I look the same. I have much the same personality, but how I feel inside is profoundly different. And that propels me into, working with others, acting in the world, serving the world in ways that I wouldn't even have been able to consider 50 years ago or understand 50 years ago.
Yeah.
So I often sort of ask myself if I would even recognize who I was in terms of if I was suddenly inside that mind and heart of 50 years ago. I have a feeling I wouldn't like it so much, but I certainly wouldn't feel that it was, comfortable or familiar.
Yeah, this is kind of a big question. And by the way, I'm just to the people who have the privilege of watching our show and not just listening, although if you're listening, you can always feel it and you can always see the show on YouTube. You have a beautiful picture of Paramahansa Yogananda over your shoulder, which to me is just radiant. And, the presence of that is here, right? Of Paramahansa, right? Um, but what would you say to your younger self? Do you have a piece of advice that you would say to your younger self?
Well, it's not a unique piece of advice from me because I've heard many people say it uh, as advice to their younger selves. Relax. It is all going to work out. And it's going to work out in a really good way uh, as you just keep your heart open to life and um, seek expansion, seek spirit, meditate. Maybe overall, relax. It's all going to work to your own highest best.
I think that's the best advice, and we can all use that today, right? Yeah,
Yeah, it's still as good advice to ourselves today as it is to our younger selves.
yeah, yeah, it really is. So I want to jump into your beautiful book, The Physics of Miraculous Healing. And you begin your book with three stories of miraculous healing. It just starts right out. A woman with cancer who has a near-death experience, and she is healed. I'm going to use the word healed. We always have to take a look at that one, right? A man with cancer receives a drug that he believes can cure cancer, and a woman with MS who hears a voice, has an experience, and stands up and walks, right? And that, of course, grabs me right away. I have worked with people for almost 30 years, right? I do Reiki and other sorts of things. And I also have interviewed other people who have had miraculous healings. But I want to ask this question, and it's a broad question. Why is it that some people, quote, experience miraculous healings and other people who are seeking it do not experience it?
Well, two answers to that. One is that I think people who are seeking miraculous healings may get more healing than they realize. They're just expecting it to be more dramatic. And because they're suffering and in pain, they want it to happen now. But the soul powers that they're using to seek that miraculous healing are, in fact, affecting a healing. But on the other level, I think it's important for people to realize that those people who have had these extraordinarily rapid changes have, in one way or another, built up their own potential for that over a long period of time. That it doesn't, in fact, all happen because of one instant. It's the culmination of their beliefs. It's a culmination of their connection to spirit. It's the culmination of them developing positive emotions that can suddenly and dramatically become transformative physically. But the transformation, the real transformation, could have been taking much longer. The reason why I stressed miraculous healing in the book, and obviously in the title, is because I think miraculous healing, the actual reality of it, that things can change that fast, opens the door for us to understand how we can heal ourselves at any rate, at any pace, because the same keys that caused these very rapid, miraculous examples of healing are the same keys that give us day-to-day resilient health or help us heal rapidly from illnesses that we have, or even overcome terminal illnesses, even if not as quickly.
So you mentioned in there rapid healing, and I think that is kind of a key component here, because when people talk about miraculous healing, they're like, well, I was ill and now I'm well, like that. So can you talk a little bit more about that and also go into, well, I don't know, like we talk about modern medicine and we talk about, miraculous healing or spirituality. I think you even said soul powers in there. Like there's a lot of information in there. So I'm not quite sure how you want to approach that, but please jump in there. Give us a lot more information.
Well, the book, you could say, has sort of two purposes and therefore has two kinds of content. You have the scientific content, because it is the physics of miraculous healing. And then it has a lot of practical things that you can make use of to awaken and use and strengthen your soul powers for self-healing. So both support the other. I think for many people, the first place I wanted to start was that there is scientific support for extraordinarily rapid, miraculous healing, despite the fact that modern medicine doesn't really offer any support.
Yeah.
But physics does. And ironically, given how influential modern medicine's perspective on reality, on the human body is the science they're basing everything on is more than 100 years out of date. So modern medicine stopped at what's known as classical physics. And classical physics is sort of material centered. It focuses on how molecules and atoms interact with different energies, but it doesn't go into the more subtle reality of molecules and atoms that subsequent disciplines within physics do. So starting with relativity, with Einstein, going into quantum physics, string theory, M theory, there's more than 100 years of development in physics that says there is no such thing as matter, that we are pure energy beings. And even multidimensional energy beings. And it's within that context that it's much easier to understand or appreciate or open up to the fact that extraordinarily rapid change is possible because it's part of the fundamental way in which reality is structured.
Yeah. Yeah, you just triggered a bunch of stuff in my brain. So wave particle duality and the observer effect, energy, everything is energy. Like I'm connecting dots here. So first of all, if people don't know about the observer effect, could you just talk a little bit about that? And then the idea that we are multidimensional. Lots of people say, well, we live on a holographic deck, on a spaceship. Right? Beat me up, Scotty. So could you just expound on that a little bit?
Well, the observer effect is famous for creating this kind of hole in material science. And the observer effect, put simply, is that energy will only behave as if it were matter when it's observed. Now, there's a lot in that to unpack in that
That's crazy.
But
So
the
crazy.
matter that makes up energy behaves like energy, but it can also behave just as waves of energy and not take any specific material form. And it only takes that material form when it is observed. So there's a lot of directions this sent physicists in their exploration, because the experiments unequivocally say that is the case. The why took them into understanding that when the energy that makes up matter doesn't behave as matter, it actually goes into another dimension. In an effect, it disappears from the physical world. And that other dimension is called non-locality. It also is very congruent with how saints and sages and near-death experiencers describe the heavens. So in physics, they describe this non-local pure energy realm as being just full of energy, full of light. In the terms of spiritual science, they describe these realms as full of energy, but full of coordinated forms, which we can think of as our angelic bodies, our etheric bodies, our energy bodies. That is where we go after we die. It's where some people are able to go at will in meditation. It's where near-death experiencers go and then return from. These are the heavens, and they're surprisingly well supported as a concept by this notion of a non-dual other dimension that is connected to the physical world.
Oh, I love how you explained that. Thank you for matching my level of consciousness and talking to me. I appreciate it. And also for the listeners, this non-duality, this non-dual. So since we are multidimensional, right? And so we can access that, we can step over to the other side or step out of this concept of reality into that. Can we then change things, alter things, pick up a different blueprint? Like this might not be the right way to say it, and then bring that back into this reality?
Definitely. So I would say, rather than that we're leaving one and entering the other, is that we're shifting our awareness from our physical primarily to our energy body primarily. But they both continue to exist. And in fact, they are interpenetrating. There's no distance, there's no space in non-locality to have any separation in terms of space or of this subtle energy body being really far away from us. It's never farther than who we are. But our attention tends to be focused on the physical body. And we perceive that through the senses. And that's where most of our awareness is centered. But the subtle energy body is always there. And it is always affecting the physical body. The subtle energy body is the hologram that projects the holographic projection that is the physical body. So
keep going. Yeah.
The energy body can exist without the physical body, but the physical body can't exist without the energy body. So a holographic projection can't exist without the hologram, but the hologram can exist without the projection. So this is again where physics supports a very basic spiritual principle that it is our astral body, our etheric body, our energy body that creates, sustains, and maintains our physical body. So why this is important to be open to is that it means anything we change in the energy body instantaneously changes the physical body. Now, it's not to say it's easy to change the energy body. Good friend once observed Riley that although people say that such and such person is, having an illness and it's just all in their mind. And he would say, well, yes, that's the worst place for it to be, is in the mind, because the mind is very strong and very powerful. And even if we don't have full awareness of or control of the extent of our mind, we're always using it. And what we are today physically, literally how we look, our state of health is all originating from our mind, from our energy body. It's just a little bit challenging to change it. But if you change it, you'll see instant change in the physical body.
Wow.
Even if you don't see it, you make changes in your physical body. If you suddenly feel better, you might just say, oh, I feel great. I've got more energy. That headache went away. That feeling of fatigue went away. A kind of incipient cold finished. You think, oh, well, that's just my body healed. But really, you changed your energy body. And as soon as you changed your energy body, it chased away all those sort of limiting physical things that you were dealing with, but not in any imaginary way. It actually changed the physiology of your body. So you had a headache because for whatever reason you were constricting blood vessels in your forebrain, or many other reasons why we get headaches. Those changed physiologically when a headache just seems to go away. So more than we know, we are constantly working the miracle that is our physical body. But most of the time, we have no idea what we're doing.
Yeah, yeah. So we're going to take a little station break. And Joseph Selbie, everything you just said is fantastic. I want to say this one thing, then we'll take a little break and come back. I have, I see energy fields and auras and things like that. And as far back as I can remember, I've seen people walking around inside a bubble that's sort of like a matrix. And I've always had this idea that the body was a projection from the outside part of that, the energy part. And I've never actually had anybody say to me what you just said. And I went, oh, that's what I'm seeing all the time is projections running around inside bubbles. And I just thank you. I think you gave me a key to something I've had a question in my mind for a long, long time. So everybody, we're going to take a little quick station break. This is Loretta Brown and Joseph Selbie, the Physics of Miraculous Healing. Please don't go away because we're going to talk a little bit more about this whole thing when we get back.
All that you are,
Did you know that Reiki healing can be done at a distance? It's true. So let Reiki Oasis focus powerful energy to help relieve your stress, grief, sadness, anger, and so much more. Convenient, personalized treatments at a distance can increase lightness of being. During your appointment, find a quiet place to lie down or sit to receive healing energies. If you want help with your dis-ease, visit ReikiOasis.com. Harness life's energy. Visit ReikiOasis.com today.
I just got a text asking me to approve a bank transfer I didn't make. I bet you get messages like this too. So much of our lives are online today, from email to banking and everything in between. To make sure my information was protected, I checked out CISA's Secure Our World website for simple steps to stay safe online. Now I know how to protect myself from scammers, and you can learn too. Go to CISA at cisa.gov/Secure Our World.
Do you make a positive difference in the world? Do you have a talent, philosophy, base of knowledge, product, or service that you know could help a lot of people if only you could reach them? Join Alternative Talk 1150's family of broadcasters and start walking down a fruitful path. As host of your very own program, dial 425-653-1150 and find out just how affordable it can be to have a show on 1150 AM. That's 425-653-1150. Alternative Talk, we have an opportunity waiting just for you.
Alternative Talk 1150, here to uplift your day.
when it's time to go. Yeah. The door's open. Yeah, yeah, yeah. When it's time to go. When it's time to go. To let go.
Thank you. Thank you, Benny. You always choose the best music. Welcome back to the original Loretta Brown Show with my guest, Joseph Selbie. Just a reminder that these shows are archived and you can download them for free and listen to them over and over at the KKNW 1150 AM archives for the original Loretta Brown Show. And we're also on, as you know, YouTube. Please go back and find the recording of this if you want to watch it visually. And you can always join us live on YouTube. There are links. I always post links in my advertising. And we're on Megaphone and X, Podcast One, Spotify, iTunes. We're all over the place. Today, we are talking about the physics of miraculous healing. And Joseph, you said so many wonderful things before the break. I want to ask you, in your book, you talk about soul powers and you explain that emotion, belief, and our ability to connect to spirit are all part of this. And since you were talking about, the non-dual, like we have an energy body, we have a physical body. Could you talk about how emotions play into this and the importance of that?
Well, emotions are constantly reverberating through our energy body. And I imagine as an energy healer that you can actually see it or feel it or sense it. Most of us don't see it in any more subtle sense, but of course, all of us experience our emotions directly if we pay attention. Much of the connection between emotion and health and our ability to self-heal is first recognizing what emotions we're playing. What emotions are we habitually harboring or running? There's, many different ways to say it, but they all mean the same things. And we tend to kind of tune into an emotional frequency, an emotional flow, and without necessarily realizing it, we may revisit that same channel and play that same emotion over and over and over again. If that is a negative emotion, even if mildly negative, that reverberating negativity through our energy body is immediately reflecting in our physical body. It's probably not reflecting in anything that you notice, but over time, what it will do is it'll cause cellular breakdown. So we have approximately 40 to 60 trillion cells in our adult human bodies, which is a mind-numbingly large number of cells. But every one of those cells is an energy dynamo. And it's, when we're in good health, it's a harmoniously operating energy dynamo. When we have negative emotions reverberating through the energy body, it disrupts that function of that dynamo. Cells start creating poorly formed proteins. They start creating the wrong proteins. They start creating proteins that are tumor creating. You might think this is something the body would never decide to do, but, and this is a bizarre thing for me to say, but I say it in order to kind of get your attention, which is if you run negative emotions strongly and deeply for years, your body will obligingly figure out how to kill itself more rapidly. So the breakdown is, things not functioning properly, but it's also deliberate tumor creation. It's other things that the body is just responding to what you appear to be asking it to do. So emotions are powerful, extremely powerful. The fix, the change, the way to more dynamic self-healing can be simply put, but not necessarily simply done, but simply put is be more conscious and aware about creating, developing, and living in positive emotion. Bernie Siegel, author of Love, Medicine, and Miracles, said after 40 years of working with people in various stages of cancer, he said, happy people don't get sick. And that's because happy people are constantly entertaining positive emotions, or in the main, entertaining positive emotions. You may have a flare up of getting annoyed at something going on, but you revert to a norm of positive emotions, which means 99.9% of the time, all your cells are performing harmoniously. They're producing the proteins they need. They're supporting the body in the way the body needs to be supported optimally. And people with positive emotions do get sick occasionally, but they bounce back quickly. But they don't tend to have, and long-term studies have shown that they don't tend to come down with serious illnesses. And there's a correlation among people who have entertained negative emotions for decades and higher incidences of cancer, heart disease, etc. So there's a real power there that most of the time we don't know we're wielding. We want to be happy, certainly. I don't know of anyone who would say, no, I don't want to be happy. But we don't always pay attention enough to know that we're not, and that we're running negative emotions. One way you can kind of tune in is in the quiet moments in your life. Maybe you're driving in a car with the radio off. Maybe you're just sitting by yourself. I often joke that it often is an experience I have while I'm taking a shower, because there's nothing else impinging on my mind, and my thoughts flow into conformance with the emotions I'm running. And so if I find myself annoyed about this, that, or the other thing, over the years, I've been able to use that awareness and recognize that my own emotion is making me annoyed. My life is not annoying me. When you feel positive, nothing can annoy you, right? So it's your own emotional state that is causing you to have annoyed thoughts. So there's a real connection between those. That's the first step. The next step is be conscious about awakening positive emotions. Meditate to connect to spirit, where you find the most positive feeling in the cosmos, that you can feel divine joy, you can feel divine love. Maybe not as immediately transformative, amazing experiences, but if you even feel a little, you're transforming your health as well as your sense of well-being. So don't worry so much about what negative emotions you might be running. Just recognize that if your mental dialogue is complaining or negative, you're running some kind of negative emotion, and see that as a trigger to work more deliberately at awakening positive emotions. Get the energy moving up. For those of you who are yogis or meditators, emotion is life force moving through the body. And if you can depersonalize it, not worry about whether you caused it or somebody else caused it, just accept that the energy is not moving in the way that's going to make you feel happy. Turn it around, move it up, do breathing exercises, bring it up to the point between the eyebrows. Sing positive songs, chant, do anything that will lift your heart and lift the energy up the spine. And do it in the moment. We often think, well, I'm kind of bummed out now, but later I'll make myself feel better. You can do it right now. It only takes a couple of minutes to literally influence your feelings. And it's well worth your peace of mind and your health.
I love what you said. I was chuckling because a couple of points, but one of the biggest ones is like, no, what? I'm responsible for how I'm feeling. Wait a minute. Isn't it the world out there doing it, and I can't help myself, right? And I think that's your points are so well taken. Number one, yeah, it is you feeling your emotions. They're yours. And your response to everything around you, you are the one that is living inside that. You can shift it. The mind, body, spirit connection, I find that sometimes just changing my posture or getting up and moving to another part of the room will help me make that transition in my mind, right? The habitual negativity. And but meditation, I love your ideas. You could get up and you could say, well, I'm going to dance for 5 minutes every day, or I'm going to sit quietly and I'm going to focus on my breath, or, there's so many different ways to do this. I have a question for those people that are just listening and go, you know what, I really am very negative and I would like to figure out how to shift that and maybe start to do meditation. What advice do you have to help people establish a habit, realizing that we're going to come up against our own resistance?
Well, the universal advice I give anyone who embarks on any kind of self-change, and I especially am encouraging to those who want to start with bringing in a meditation practice where they don't already have one. What I tell them all is don't try to do too much. We often are over enthusiastic when we decide to change. There's something called the New Year's Eve syndrome, where you make all these New Year's resolutions, but you make too many and they overwhelm you. And studies show that 99% of all New Year's resolutions never happen.
Yeah.
There is no change. So pick, as long as we're on the subject of meditation, pick a meditation technique that you want to learn and pick a time of the day that you're going to meditate. Choose it carefully. Don't think, oh, I can cram it in today between 12 and 12:10. That may be true, but that won't really help you establish a habit, because it's unlikely in most people's lives that they always have between 12 and 12:10 in the middle of the day free. So pick a time that you know you are going to be able to meditate regularly. Be modest in your goal. 10 minutes is great. I would say, think of that as your starting point rather than your ending point, but get 10 minutes established, and then you can add more and more. And you can meditate a lot if you are drawn to it and want to do it. But you can have significant help in 10 minutes, in 20 minutes, in 30 minutes. It will transform your time beyond that. It'll transform your experience at that time. But start slow, start small, and be specific. So if you're going to meditate, what technique are you going to use? In my book, I offer the Hung Saw technique of meditation. Highly recommend it. But if not that, are you going to do mindfulness? Do you know how to do mindfulness? Be ready to put it into practice. Don't just kind of lunge at it and hope it sticks.
Yeah. we're guilty as charged.
Yes. Well,
Yeah.
I can use a metaphor of Mark Twain's, meditating longer is the easiest thing in the world to do. I've done it myself. I've tried to do it myself 1,000 times.
Yeah.
So the mind is already full of habits. So you have to respect the fact that you don't have the kind of control of your habitual responses that you would like to have. Habits can be good, habits can be bad, but they're powerful. So respect what you've already developed and realize that changing means, rearranging an already established habit.
Your book is talking about, miraculous healings, but your little subtitle there, Enable Unlimited Self-Healing. This is an ongoing thing, right? Where you're taking charge of your health at all levels and even your consciousness, the way that you show up. Having said that, we've got just a couple minutes. Very quickly, what advice would you give someone who found themselves diagnosed with a terminal illness?
Well, first, they would have all my heart sympathy and empathy, even for those of us who might have meditated like myself for years and years. It's likely to come as a shock. So I would not be at all surprised if it's shocking. But I would suggest first asking yourself, what do you really believe is going to be the result of that diagnosis?
Mm.
And if your first thoughts about it, or even, not like immediately the first thought, but if the thoughts that most readily come up are fearful and a fear of death, then I would look into reading particularly books about radical remission.
Mm.
And the people who have gone through what you're about to go through and see how they did it. There are far more people who have survived cancer and left it behind, not just extended their life for a year or two, than most people realize. There are thousands of books written by cancer survivors. There are studies of thousands of cancer survivors. Go find them. I quote a few in my book, resources in my book of that nature. But educate yourself on, is the diagnosis you're being given the only diagnosis? And don't let that preliminary first diagnosis freeze your mind into, this is what I've got, this is what I've got to deal with. I have 1 year to 2 years to live, 5 years, 10 years to live. Ignore that. Ignore that. That is the first thing you want to do. And the second thing is tune into people who have shown that the diagnoses don't apply unless you let them.
Good. Well, Joseph Selbie, we are at the end of our show. Where do people find you? Your website?
So I have a website at josephselbie.com. And the spelling of my last name is somewhat unusual. It's Selbie rather than Selby. So josephselbie with an IE.com. You can find out about all my other books. There are first chapters of every one of my books available if you want to kind of sample. There are articles, there are courses that you can take if you want to go deeper in any one of those directions.
Thank you so much. The Physics of Miraculous Healing. This is Loretta Brown with Joseph Selbie and Benny Mathers. You're the best. Blessings to everyone. We'll talk to you next week. Bye now.